Right everyone, it is Finn here and welcome to my Premier League Matchweek 14 predictions. A brand new week, a brand new round of fantastic games to talk about. From Leicester versus Man City to Man United versus West Ham. We even have a brand new managerial face to look at, or an old one if you want to look at it that way. With Unai Emery joining Aston Villa. Premier League Matchweek 14 is going to be a gigantic one, but of course as usual we're going to be talking about every single second of it in today's video. Now of course before we jump straight into the predictions, which is why I'm pretty sure you guys clicked on a prediction video, don't forget to leave your predictions in the comment section down below. The most accurate person from last week was Inky Squid. I think he got 5 out of 10 predictions correct. Well done to Inky Squid, but let's see if you guys can beat it for next week. But instead of me just talking about things forever and ever and losing viewer retention, I guess, jumping into game number 1 of Premier League Matchweek 14, we have Leicester City versus Man City. Now of course, Leicester City have definitely picked up a pace after a very slow start to the Premier League season, only losing 1 in their last 5 games. But I hate to say it to Leicester City, but even after their 4-0 win last week versus Manchester City, I can only see one winner, and I do see this being a 1-3 win. I mean, Man City have just been so strong this season, only 1 loss, and the way haaland is scoring at the moment, I mean, he scores more often than I change underwear, which I should really get looked at. Next game is Bournemouth versus Tottenham Hotspurs. Now, I would love to say that this should be a straightforward win for Tottenham Hotspurs, but they've been really disappointing as of late. Of course, losing to Newcastle United in the Premier League, drawing to Sporting in the Champions League, getting knocked out of the Champions League. I mean, Tottenham Hotspurs not even making it out of the group stage. Antonio Conte is going to be the first ever manager to go bald twice in his career. Look, I like this Tottenham Hotspurs team, but they have been struggling big time. Looking at them versus Bournemouth though, I do believe that they could still have a chance. Looking at their previous game, losing 2-0 to Wolves or to West Ham United. I do have to say defensively they had a few too many gaps, their clearing was absolutely awful, and if you defend like that versus Heung-min Son, Harry Kane and a few other brilliant attackers, there can only be one winner. But once again, it is Tottenham Hotspurs, absolutely anything can happen unfortunately, but I think they'll take it 1-0. We then jump onto Brentford versus Wolverhampton Wanderers next. Now both of these two teams are in the exact same boat at the moment, both losing 4-0 in their previous game. Although saying that, I do probably back Brentford's chances slightly more. I think they've shown me a tiny bit more throughout the season. And on the attacking front, Wolverhampton Wanderers have been non-existent. My one problem for Brentford though is losing 4-0 to Aston Villa. Well, first of all, that by itself is a major problem. But in that game, they really seemed to struggle when it came to defending attacking play from wide positions. And versus a semi-informed Adama Traore, they could be very, very dangerous. But as I said, just looking at Brentford, kind of what they've shown me throughout the season, I do think that the Bees will sting the Wolves, and the Wolves will go whimpering back to their den. If only the software would let me put in their score. There we go, 2-1. Thank you. The Amex Stadium is the next destination we're going to, with Brighton versus Chelsea. Now, I'm going to say that I will give Chelsea a 2-1 win here. Looking at them, they've been very consistent, of course unbeaten in their last 6 games. Although I will say Chelsea haven't been that convincing in the points that they've been getting. At the end of the day, no matter how well you're playing, I guess as long as you're getting the result, that's all that matters.
No, he's got a point.
But versus Brighton, once again, it's not going to be an easy task. Although I'm giving Brighton the loss here, they are not a bad team whatsoever, and they have the ability to take points from anyone in the Premier League. Once again, I really do like this Brighton team, but looking at the form and the consistency that Chelsea have been giving, I do think they'll take it, although I would say that they do have to up it a level. The Eagles take on the Saints next as we go to Crystal Palace versus Southampton. Once again, a game that could be tremendously close. Looking at the history between these two teams in the last 10 games, I believe there's been 3 Crystal Palace wins, 3 draws, and 4 Southampton wins. Once again, incredibly close. And looking at things this time around, it could be another very close fixture, which is why I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. Looking at Crystal Palace in their previous game, they lost 3-0 to Everton, which I'm just going to say, the better team won on the day. I don't feel like it's a true reflection of how good Crystal Palace truly can be. They just weren't the better team on the day. Looking at Southampton, although they drew to Arsenal, which by itself is a huge achievement for them, I do feel like defensively they had a few too many gaps. I think on the attacking front they had a few promising moments, but once again, having those defensive gaps versus a very promising Crystal Palace team on the attacking front, I do feel like you could lose a few points here, which is why I think the points will be shared. Next up, we have a very interesting game with Newcastle United versus Aston Villa. Now, tell a football fan a year and a half ago that Newcastle United would be the richest club in world football, and they would be facing Aston Villa, who's managed by Unai Emery. I can promise you absolutely no one would see it coming, and if they told you they did, they're absolutely lying. I do feel like looking at this game, Newcastle United probably are still the favourites. Although Aston Villa, we've seen a few clubs in the Premier League this season lose their managers and then do tremendously well after losing their managers. But I want to be respectful to Newcastle United, currently 4th place in the Premier League. They should be so tremendously proud of themselves, really getting valuable points here and there, 4 wins in their last 5 games. But looking at Aston Villa, I do feel like maybe they could shock us. As we know, Unai Emery has won multiple European trophies. Now at Aston Villa, once again, it's a tiny bit of a shock to the system. Obviously, winning their last game 4-0, I mean, maybe Steven Gerrard was the problem. Maybe he wasn't just the right manager for the club. But regardless of that, as I said, Newcastle United, I have to respect how they've played so far this season, and I think they should win it. Fulham versus Everton is next. Another really interesting game. Looking at Fulham, they've scored 8 goals in their past 3 games, and with that kind of attacking firepower versus a team like Everton, it could be very dangerous. Although looking at Everton, a massive 3-0 win versus Crystal Palace in their previous game, I do feel like this is a really solid squad. It just took some time to settle. Even when they're losing points, I feel like they still have some very solid performances from Iwobi in the midfield, who he's really refound his career. You've got Tarkowski in the back, which, let's be honest, the man deserves an England call-up more than Harry Maguire ever did. I believe this Everton team is so solid, and if only they could get those results. I do feel like this time around, for some reason, I am going to give Everton the points here. I do feel like the Toffees will win it, which might sound like a tough one to chew.
Oh, okay, I see what you did there.
But although looking at Fulham, although they could definitely take all 3 points here, I'm just going to back Everton. Liverpool versus Leeds United is next. Now, I can't believe I'm saying this about the almighty Liverpool, but I have no idea who to go for here, which is shocking to say about Liverpool. 1 second you beat Man City 1-0, next you go to lose to Nottingham Forest 1-0.
Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit.
I have no idea what to think about Liverpool, but versus a team that has only gotten 2 points out of their last 24 available, I would like to think that Liverpool are the favourites here, although once again, anything can happen with this current team. But I do think, looking at them in the Champions League, the way that they have been playing there, they should take this one 3-0. Kind of a big bang, which, I mean, I think describes Liverpool perfectly. I mean, lots of people don't know whether to believe in it or not. We then jump on to our second final game of Premier League Matchweek 14, which once again, don't forget to subscribe below if you are not already. We are on the road to 10,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and it is still very possible. But looking at Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest, despite the fact that Forest did beat Liverpool in their previous game, which, can we just talk about the fact that the only 2 teams Nottingham Forest have beaten in the last 20 years in the Premier League have been West Ham and Liverpool? Mental to think about. But versus Arsenal, I do think Arsenal should take this one of the best teams in the Premier League at the moment, and it should be relatively comfortable. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, for our last game of Premier League Matchweek 14, we have Man United versus West Ham. Now, I'm just going to straight up say this. I think United have no excuse but to win this one, and it should be 2-1. I think West Ham United in their previous game, looking at that 2-0 win versus Bournemouth, they've really shown that they are on the rise at the moment. They've had a massive improvement in form. I think looking at Benrahma, he is essentially the Algerian Messi at this point, which does scare me as a United fan. But looking at Man United, they have been in brilliant form. They've been winning as many points as possible. Although no, they didn't beat Chelsea. I felt like they dominated many aspects of that game, and they really could have won it. At the end of the day, I'm just going for Man United because I do believe they are the better team. But ladies and gentlemen, that is it for my Premier League Matchweek 14 predictions. Once again, I would appreciate it if you did like down below, if you did subscribe down below, and don't forget to leave your predictions. Until next time,